County Assembly who do the all-important duty of oversight?
Kenya has been independent for more than 60 years. So the national government has had its systems grow over time and become better. Devolution now is in its, I think, 11th or 12th year, depending on how you count, starting the 12th year. So the systems are not very well entrenched. In fact, there has been a lot of guesswork on so many things. Add that to the fact that sometimes Kenyans are very enthusiastic about changing governors and changing senators and changing leaders. So sometimes someone comes for 5 years as a governor, and before they even get to learn how things are going, you have a new one. Some MCAs are there for 5 years, and before they even have mastered the standing orders, we have an election and we have a new set of MCAs. I think the problem we have is we need to rethink devolution properly. We need to start, call these people, see where all the weak links are, and start plugging them in and start finding a way to polish up where, because there is what the law says and there is what is actually happening out there. What is practical. And I can tell you, after 12 years of doing something, with changing governors, changing governments, and then, just after an election, people in a funny way, sorry to say, are trying to return the money they spent on campaigns. So there's nothing really happening from Wananchi. Towards the last 1.5 years, the next election. So I think Wananchi only gets served for 2 years if they do get served. During that time, again, people are thinking about their re-election. So even thinking that the county should have a way it would work becomes very difficult. Okay. I have this strong feeling that devolution is not old enough to be able to become a benchmark on which you can say that things are working this way and this is how things are supposed to work. It needs time. But at the same time, we need to start saying, what are the lessons we are learning? Where are the mistakes? Because, for example, what is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. If we are going to have a constituency development fund, which many times the court has pronounced as illegal, let us also have a ward development fund. Because these people come and make promises. Nitajenga shule, nitajenga barabara. Hata ile kabarabara pale nitaeka stima. And then this guy goes and finds his pay slip is a very miserable one. And then he has no access to county resources and there's nothing he can do. So he marks the governor as an enemy. Kiambu is on record as having returned a lot of money to Treasury, I think 4 billion last year. Na zile shida ziko Kiambu. And these MCAs are wondering, why weren't we given a portion of this money to come and use in our wards?
So what development fund
What development fund would have been something, but having been declared unconstitutional at NGCDF, which they even had to change the name to try and make it work, because you cannot do oversight and then do implementation. I think the problem with also that is when we do World Development Fund, tutaanza pia akina senator hapa, Senator Development Fund. And before we know, every elected leader from the president all the way will have a development fund.
Other than the fund, Jesse, there is a bill that has been tabled at the Senate in terms of if you're elected under one ticket, the governor and the deputy, then you cannot be separated. So that is also going to cure a lot of these issues where the deputy governor feels that they are not being given the powers that they deserve, and then they go behind the scenes, work with the MCAs to impeach the governor. So that way, when you're tied together, when either one is impeached, the deputy governor or the governor, you all go. So there's a bill already at the floor of the House that is being, and I think that is also going to strengthen some of the problems that you're seeing, because like for the issue of Meru, it was outright that the deputy governor had already started his campaign in terms of being a governor. And if you go to all these other places where there are like looming impeachment motions coming, it's the same thing. It's a deputy governor who is feeling that, they can't wait another 5 years, so they want to launch their campaign. That's one thing. Definitely the ward fund. I believe the word, because you see the thing is, devolution was brought to bring down the resources down to the grassroots, and the people who are interacting with the electorate directly are the MCAs. So there's no way you can say that you have someone in charge of the constituency, they have a development fund, but our ward managers, because that's what they are down there, the member of county assembly, they don't have any. They need the fund. That one is outright. Now on the issue of the Senate having a fund, the Senate is the upper house. The Senate is there for oversight. And even the roles of the Senate have been complete. The Constitution is very clear on what the role of the Senate is. The only issue with the Senate is that, for instance, and this has been discussed prior, is I have to oversight my county.
Yeah.
As an elected senator, you have to go down to the county. You have to figure out what is the governor doing, what are these projects that he's launching. Some of those things have got heavy documentation in terms of accounting. Of course, not all senators are accountants or auditors. So there's the issue of how do I engage, for instance, an auditor to be able to tell me that that thing that the governor is doing is actually within, So those issues of oversight are not necessarily a fund for development. Okay. It is how do we oversight the governor? For instance, people tell you, rudi nyumbani wendo kaangalia governor Kenya anafanya. Fine. They are doing like 15 projects, roads, what. You might be able to get to 3 or 4. But you might not be able to have that resource to be able to get down to, and that's how a lot of money is lost, because by the time now the reports are being brought years later, because that's the other issue we have with Senate, we are always auditing past expenses. So you don't catch it when it's happening.
I get you.
You catch it when it's already spent, and then you're like, oh, in this year, this governor did this and this, and then it's a matter of now asset recovery or, things like that.
When it's a little bit too late. When it's too late. I get you. And what of the issue of senators or governors shifting after 10 years? They focus on the Senate right now. Should we perhaps take a look at that? Because it brings issues. I believe it should be banned.
I believe it should be banned. I mean, we have a couple of senators who are now, a couple of
governors,
previous governors who are now senators and who are sitting in the particular committees that are supposed to oversight their work when they were governors. So, of course, the conflict of interest is outright. Definitely. And I think, you see, here the issue is, even if we say practically it doesn't work, because those are now the things that were not really thought through. But how do you pass a motion at the floor of the House with the same people who intend to, let's say, it has to be passed at the National Assembly, for instance. At the National Assembly, there's an MP thinking, I'm going to do 2 terms, then I'm going to be governor, and then I'll retire at the upper house. That person is not going to pass a motion or a bill that says you cannot go to Senate.
Okay.
So it becomes an issue of the people who are supposed to change the constitution so that it makes sense. Are the interested parties.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't see that one ever passing at the floor of the House, but I think it should be that once you're a governor, you cannot come back as a senator.
Okay.
But senators can go be governors. And the other thing is also, I think that once you're a woman, right, a woman representative, because it's an affirmative action seat, you should not sit there for more than 2 terms.
Okay.
The same way, if you are nominated a member of parliament, even the Senate or the National Assembly, it's supposed to act as a springboard. You cannot be nominated more than twice.
Okay, well noted.
Those are things that we need to deal with.
And I have to ask you, because perhaps Fanya Mambo is curious about this. We saw reports on media about the behind-the-scenes intrigues that led to Kawira Mwangaza being saved in the Senate. Since you're a member of the Senate, nominated, mind you, are these things real? Is there a phone call from a higher office that perhaps influences the type of voting that is seen on the floor of the House?
Absolutely not. That is a fallacy.
So money doesn't change hands?
No, okay. Absolutely not. Let me tell you, because I was there till I was kicked out towards the end, but I was there the whole time.
In the thick of it.
Yeah, and I can tell you, it's more about persuading. Like for me, I literally spent more than 6 hours reading those documents in my office. By the time I went to Parliament, I knew anyone who had not read, and you say, oh, but you, Mama, have you seen the IFMIS? And I'll tell you, that's not IFMIS. As a matter of fact, they should have attached audited reports and blah, blah. So I was able to persuade my fellow senators who might have not gotten a chance to read everything. So what was happening was senators persuading each other based on the evidence, on what, it's like me, I was convicted that Kawira must be saved. So every person I was finding in the corridor, I was telling them, now look, I have the 7 charges on this one and this one. Then we would argue. And then, there were a couple, I can tell you, I convinced a couple, I would say up to 5. So,
would you mention them by name?
No, I can't mention them.
She's smart. She's done this before. Anyway, Fanya Mambo, let's shift to other things because time is definitely moving. And perhaps let's start with your reaction from President Ruto's first State of the Nation address. And I have one excerpt touching on the cost of living, which is definitely the main issue. We've had from the National Dialogue Committee members saying if that's not on the agenda, we'll be back